In this lesson we're going to look at adding and subtracting fractions, but a wee bit more complicated. Okay, let's look at this first one. We've got x plus 2 over 3 plus x minus 1 over 4. Now what we're looking to do here is we're looking to get a common denominator to add the fractions, just as you would do with numbers. Now you're trying to get the lowest common multiple of 3 and 4, which is 12. You just do 3 times 4 to get that. Okay, well, what do you do to get from 3 to 12? You're kind of creating an equivalent fraction. Now, in order to do that, you timesed over by the 4 to get 12. So you must do the same to the top to create the equivalent fraction. Now, because the x plus 2 has more than one term in it, you generate a bracket there. So it becomes 4 bracket x plus 2. And then you look at the other side and say, how would you get from the 4 to the 12? Well, you times across by this 3. So you must times this top thing by 3 as well. So put it in a bracket and times it by 3. Okay, so to make that look a wee bit better, it looks like this. Now that we've got a common denominator, we can then put all of this top line all over 12, because you really just add the top two values when you've got a common denominator. So that can look like this. Now what you need to do is simplify this top line. The bottom line is not really going to change from a 12. I'm just trying to simplify the top line here. Okay, so what do we do? Well, you multiply the 4 by the x and the 4 by the 2. And then you do the 3 by the x and the 3 by the minus 1. So 4 times x is 4x and 4 2s are 8. 3 times x is 3x and 3 times minus 1 is minus 3, like that. Now if you simplify this top line, add your x's together and add or subtract your numbers. So x's here becomes 7 and this becomes 5, doesn't it? So it's 7x plus 5 over 12. Okay, let's look at another example. This one has a takeaway in the middle, so slightly different. X plus 5 over 2 take away x take away 1 over 3. Common denominator. 2 times 3 makes 6. The lowest common multiple is 6. How did you get from 2 to a 6 down below? Well, you timesed it by this 3. And some people think of it like this. They think times across by the 3. So do the same to the top, so you diagonally times up by the 3. There's more than one term here, so put it in brackets. So 3 bracket x plus 5. Okay, same idea on the other side. So how did you get from 3 to 6? Well, you times by this 2. So do the same to the top. Times that by 2. The 2 bracket, because there's more than one term, x minus 1. So to make it look a bit neater, that looks like that. Now, we've got a common denominator, so we can just put all of this over the 6. But be careful, because that there is a takeaway. So we have to have a takeaway here in the top line. That makes it a wee bit more difficult, because you're now multiplying a bracket by a negative number, so we have to be careful when doing that. Right, let's look and see what happens here. So do 3 times x is 3x and 3 5s are 15. Be careful, this is now a negative 2. So negative 2 times x, negative 2x, and negative 2 times negative 1 is a plus 2. So that's going to end up looking like that. Your negative 2x and your plus 2 at the end, something quite often people mess up. Okay, if you take your 3x and you subtract your 2x, and you take your plus 15 and add your 2, and get your final answer. Notice the 6 hasn't changed from the start. 3x take away 2x is just x, and 15 plus 2 is 17 over 6. Okay, let's look at this last example. 3x plus 5 over 2 take away x minus 7 over 4. There's a slight difference here again. I know there's a takeaway, but the lowest common multiple of 2 and 4 is actually just 4. You don't need to go to 8. You can do that, but you don't need to. You can just leave it as a 4. So let's look at what happens there. Well, this side hasn't really changed. So we've still got a 4, so we haven't really done anything to the top. So I'm just going to write x take away 7. However, on the other side, you've gone from a 2 to a 4, so you've actually doubled. Notice we're not timesing across anymore, or timesing up. You just doubled the 2 to get a 4. So do the same to the top, double it, 2 and a 3x. So I'm trying to write with the mouse here, but 3x plus 5. Okay, so that's going to look like that a bit neater. So now the same as before, we just set all of this over the 4 because we've got a common denominator now. Now if we times out, we'll get the right answer. 2 times 3x, 2 times 5. What do you do here? Well, we really think of it as a negative 1. So negative 1 times x is negative x. Negative 1 times negative 7, that's going to give you a plus 7 at the end. So there's your 6x plus 10, negative 1 times x, and negative 1 times negative 7. Remember, I just put the 1 in there, it sits like that. I don't mind people putting a 1 in to make it, if they understand it better. Okay, let's finish up on this one then. 6x take away x, that's 5, and 10 plus 7, 17. So final answer, 5x plus 17 or 4.